March 27th, 3 p.m. The sun dipped low, casting the remnants of Crossroads in a harsh golden light. Smoke curled lazily from the charred remains of the outer defenses, and the air was thick with the mingling scents of earth, blood, and fire. The defenders moved through the wreckage, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and grim satisfaction. Crossroads had survived, but the cost was heavy. Price stood at the center of the settlement, her rifle slung across her back as she addressed the group. Orpheus won't stop. This was a warning shot. Next time, they'll send more, and they'll be smarter. So what's the plan? Maria asked, her tone sharp as she cleaned her rifle. Price's gaze swept over the group. We take the fight to them. Green, did you pull anything actionable from the data? Green stepped forward, her laptop tucked under one arm. Yes. There's a secondary hub about 50 miles from here. Smaller than the one we hit before, but critical to their regional operations. If we take it out, we cripple their ability to launch another attack this size. And it's lightly defended, Carter added. At least, compared to what we just faced. Then it's settled, Price said. We move at dawn. Preparations were quick but deliberate. The defenders who could still fight armed themselves, scavenging weapons and ammunition from the battlefield. Those two injured to join the assault focused on fortifying the settlement, their eyes shadowed with worry. I joined Tucker at the perimeter, inspecting a cache of makeshift explosives. Think we'll have enough firepower for this? I asked, hefting a grenade. It'll have to be, Tucker replied, his expression grim. We've been fighting on fumes for weeks. This has to count. It will, I said, my grip tightening on the Halligan tool. Because it has to. Night fell quickly, wrapping Crossroads in a blanket of shadows. Around a small fire, the group gathered for a final briefing. Green laid out a map, her fingers tracing the route to the hub. We'll approach from the west, she said. There's dense forest here that should cover our advance. The facility's main defenses are concentrated on the eastern side. What about alarms? Maria asked. I can disable them remotely, Green replied, but I'll need to be inside their system for at least 5 minutes. That means holding the perimeter until I'm done. We can do that, Price said, but once we're in, there's no turning back. Everyone ready for this? Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. No one spoke of the fear that hung in the air like a cloud. We all felt it. We just didn't have the luxury of giving it power. The journey to the hub was uneventful, the forest silent save for the crunch of leaves beneath our boots. The moonlight filtered through the branches, painting the landscape in eerie silver hues. As we neared the facility, the first signs of activity came into view. Spotlights sweeping lazily across the perimeter and the faint hum of machinery. Price held up a hand, signaling us to stop. She turned to Green. Do your thing. Green crouched beside a tree, her laptop glowing faintly as she began typing. Give me a minute, she whispered. Maria scanned the area through her scope. 2 guards on the west gate. Another pair near the main entrance. Nothing we can't handle. Let's keep it quiet, Price said. We're not here for a firefight, not yet. The guards went down silently, Price and Maria's coordinated shots leaving no time for alarms. Green motioned for us to follow as she slipped through the west gate, her laptop still in hand. Inside, the facility was smaller than expected, its layout simple and industrial. Pipes ran along the walls, and the air was filled with the low hum of generators. Green pointed to a control room on the 2nd floor. That's where we need to be. Tucker, Maria, secure the lower levels, Price ordered. The rest of us will cover Green. The ascent to the control room was tense. Every corner felt like a potential ambush, every shadow a threat. But the halls remained eerily empty, the lack of resistance unsettling. This is too easy, Carter muttered, his voice barely audible. Stay sharp, Price replied. We're not out of the woods yet. Green worked quickly, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed the facility's systems. I've got control, she said, her voice taut with concentration. Give me 3 minutes, and I can shut this place down. The first shot rang out, shattering the fragile silence. Soldiers poured into the room below, their shouts echoing up the stairwell. We've got company. Tucker's voice crackled over the comms. Price turned to me, her rifle raised. Hold them off. Green, finish your work. Everyone else, do not let them reach this room. I moved to the top of the stairs, the Halligan tool in hand. The first soldier to reach the landing met its brutal weight, his weapon clattering to the floor as he fell. Behind me, Maria's rifle cracked, and Price's commands cut through the chaos. Done, Green shouted, slamming the laptop shut. The system's down. They're blind. Then let's get out of here, Price said, firing one last shot before motioning for the retreat. The group moved as one, fighting our way back to the west gate. The facility was in disarray, its lights flickering as alarms blared futilely. We reached the tree line just as the first explosions rocked the compound, Tucker's charges ensuring nothing remained operational. The forest swallowed us as we retreated, the glow of the burning facility fading behind us. No one spoke, the weight of what we'd accomplished settling over us like a shroud. Price finally broke the silence. They'll know it was us, and they'll come harder next time. Then we'll hit harder, Maria said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. We kept moving, the dawn breaking over the horizon as a reminder that the fight was far from over. But for now, we had struck a blow, one that Orpheus wouldn't forget. 5:30 a.m. The group trudged through the forest, their breaths visible in the crisp morning air. The faint glow of the destroyed facility still lingered on the horizon, a silent testament to their latest victory. Despite the chill, sweat clung to my skin, and my muscles ached from the relentless pace. How far to the rendezvous point? Maria asked, her voice low but steady. Price checked her map, her expression unreadable. 2 miles. We need to keep moving before they send scouts to investigate. Tucker let out a grunt as he adjusted his shotgun. They're going to be furious after what we just pulled. If we're lucky, we bought Crossroads a few days. And if we're not? Carter asked, his voice trembling slightly. Then they'll hit back harder than ever, Price said, her tone leaving no room for doubt. Green's laptop beeped softly as she pulled it from her pack, her fingers flying over the keys. I've been monitoring their comms. The hub's destruction triggered a regional blackout. They're scrambling, but it won't last long. We need to capitalize on this while we can. The rendezvous point was a shallow cave nestled against a rocky hillside. It wasn't much, but it offered cover and a chance to regroup. The group filed in silently, each of us dropping to the ground with a mix of exhaustion and relief. Price took up position near the entrance, her rifle resting across her knees as she scanned the forest for signs of pursuit. Maria and Tucker worked quickly to check their weapons, while Green and Carter set up a temporary command station with her laptop. I leaned against the cool stone wall, gripping the Halligan tool tightly. The weight of it was both comforting and a reminder of the battle still to come. We hit them hard, Green said, her voice tinged with both pride and urgency. But this data shows they have fallback protocols. They'll recover faster than we expected. Then we need to hit them again, Maria said, her tone sharp. Keep them off balance. Price turned, her eyes narrowing. Not yet. We're running low on resources, and we've got wounded. We need to be smart about our next move. 6:30 a.m. The group's quiet was broken by a faint rustling outside the cave. Instantly, weapons were raised, and the air grew tense. Price motioned for silence, her finger pressed to her lips as she crept toward the entrance. The sound grew louder, the crunch of leaves and snapping twigs unmistakable. My grip on the Halligan tool tightened as adrenaline surged through my veins. Then, a low whistle cut through the air, a signal. Ward, Price muttered, lowering her rifle. She stepped outside, and moments later, the rugged leader of Crossroads appeared, flanked by 2 of his fighters. You've been busy, Ward said, his gravelly voice carrying a hint of approval. We saw the smoke. Figured you might need backup. We took out one of their hubs, Price replied. But it's only a matter of time before they regroup. What's the situation back at Crossroads? Ward's expression darkened. Quiet. Too quiet. We've fortified as much as we can, but if they send a full assault, we won't hold. Then we'll make sure they don't, Price said. Green, do we have any targets from the data? Green nodded, turning her laptop to face the group. There's another hub, larger than the one we just hit. It's a command center for their local operations. If we take it out, we cripple their ability to launch coordinated strikes in this region. And if we fail? Carter asked, his voice quiet. Then Crossroads falls, Price said bluntly. But if we succeed, we turn the tide. Plans were quickly laid out, the group's weariness giving way to determination. Ward offered additional fighters, but Price shook her head. We need you to hold Crossroads. If this fails, they'll come for you first. We'll hold, Ward said, his tone resolute. Just make sure this works. As the sun climbed higher, the group set out once more, leaving the safety of the cave behind. The forest felt oppressive, the weight of the mission pressing down on each of us. But there was no turning back. Crossroads depended on us, and failure was not an option. The new hub came into view, its steel walls gleaming in the morning light. The facility was larger than expected, its defenses formidable. Patrols moved methodically, their precision a stark reminder of Orpheus' efficiency. Price crouched behind a fallen tree, her binoculars trained on the compound. This is going to be tough, she admitted. But we've faced worse. What's the plan? Maria asked, her rifle at the ready. Price lowered the binoculars, her expression hard. We hit fast and hard. Green disables the alarms while the rest of us create a diversion. Once we're inside, we plant charges and get out. And if things go sideways? Tucker asked. Price's gaze met his. Then we fight our way out. Together. The group nodded, their resolve clear. As we prepared to move, the tension in the air was electric. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about striking back. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like we were taking control of the battlefield. And as we crept closer to the hub, one thought echoed in my mind. Orpheus had no idea what was coming. 9 a.m. The group crouched in the dense underbrush just outside the perimeter of the Orpheus command hub. The steel walls loomed above us, their smooth surfaces interrupted by the occasional guard tower. The faint hum of machinery carried on the breeze, mingling with the rhythmic crunch of patrols pacing the grounds. There, Price whispered, pointing toward a maintenance access hatch near the west side of the compound. That's our way in. Green adjusted her laptop strap and leaned closer. I can disable their internal security from that hatch. But once I do, they'll know something's wrong. We'll have 10 minutes, tops. Then we make every second count, Maria said, her voice tight with resolve. Price nodded. Maria, Tucker, you're on distraction duty. Draw their attention to the east gate and keep them occupied. Green, Carter, and I will secure the access hatch. Once we're in, Green takes down their systems and we plant the charges. I tightened my grip on the Halligan tool, feeling its familiar weight. And if things go sideways? Price's gaze hardened. Then we adapt and fight our way out. Together. Maria and Tucker slipped away silently, their figures blending into the forest shadows. Moments later, the sharp crack of gunfire echoed through the trees, followed by the distant thud of an explosion. The compound stirred to life, guards rushing toward the east gate in response to the sudden chaos. That's our cue, Price said, signaling for us to move. We darted across the open ground, staying low to avoid detection. The maintenance hatch was exactly where Price had spotted it, partially concealed by a tangle of vines and debris. Green dropped to her knees, pulling a toolkit from her pack as she began working on the lock. How long? Price asked, her eyes scanning the perimeter for any sign of movement. 30 seconds, Green replied, her voice steady despite the tension. The seconds dragged on, every sound amplified in the stillness. Finally, with a soft click, the hatch swung open. Green slipped inside first, followed by Carter, Price, and me. The air inside was cool and stale, the narrow corridor dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights. This way, Green whispered, leading us through the labyrinthine corridors. Her laptop screen cast an eerie glow as she navigated the facility schematics. The main control room is up ahead. If I can get in, I can lock them out of their systems. And the charges? Carter asked, his voice tight with apprehension. We plant them after Green's done, Price said. We're not leaving anything to chance. We reached the control room without incident, the reinforced door standing as the last barrier. Green set to work bypassing the lock, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. Behind us, the faint sound of footsteps grew louder. "They're coming," I said, gripping the Halligan tool tightly. Price nodded. "Hold them off." Green, work fast. The first soldier rounded the corner, his rifle raised. I swung the Halligan tool, the impact sending him crashing to the floor. Price and Carter fired in tandem, their shots precise and lethal. The corridor erupted into chaos as more soldiers appeared, their shouts echoing through the narrow space. "Got it!" Green exclaimed as the control room door slid open. She rushed inside, immediately connecting her laptop to the central console. "Cover her," Price ordered, her rifle barking as she took down another attacker. I positioned myself near the doorway, swinging the Halligan tool in wide arcs to keep the enemy at bay. Carter crouched beside me, his pistol trembling in his hands as he fired. "System access confirmed," Green said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "I'm locking them out now." A grenade skittered into the room, its pin already pulled. Without thinking, I kicked it back into the hallway, the explosion rocking the facility as debris rained down around us. "Done," Green shouted, disconnecting her laptop. "Their systems are down. They're blind." "Time to plant the charges," Price said, tossing me a satchel of explosives. "Set them on the support beams. We need to bring this place down." The group moved swiftly, each of us planting charges at strategic points throughout the facility. The alarms had fallen silent, replaced by the distant sound of frantic shouting as Orpheus soldiers struggled to regain control. We regrouped near the maintenance hatch, the charges armed and ready. Price held up the detonator, her expression grim. "Once this goes, there's no turning back." "Do it," Maria's voice crackled over the comms. "We're clear on our end." Price pressed the button, and the ground beneath us shuddered as the charges detonated in a chain reaction. Flames and smoke consumed the facility, the walls collapsing in on themselves as we sprinted into the forest. We didn't stop running until the glow of the explosion was far behind us. The forest was eerily quiet, the only sounds our labored breaths and the distant cries of confused Orpheus forces. Price turned to the group, her face illuminated by the first rays of dawn. "We hit them where it hurt. They'll be reeling from this for weeks." "And us?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Price's gaze hardened. "We regroup, we plan, and when the time comes, we hit them again." The group nodded, their resolve unshaken. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, it felt like we had the upper hand. March 28th, 11 a.m. The forest was quiet save for the rustling of leaves in the breeze and the distant calls of birds reclaiming their territory. The group sat huddled in a clearing, their breaths still heavy from the sprint away from the collapsing Orpheus facility. The towering trees provided a protective canopy, their shadows dancing in the golden light of the late morning sun. Maria slumped against a tree, her rifle resting on her lap. "Well, that was one hell of a fireworks show," she muttered, wiping a streak of dirt from her cheek. Tucker let out a dry chuckle, wincing as he adjusted a makeshift bandage on his arm. "I think we rattled their cage pretty good." Price remained standing, her posture rigid as she surveyed the group. Her sharp gaze lingered on each of us, assessing injuries and morale. "We did more than rattle it," she said finally. "We knocked it over. But they'll regroup, and when they do, they'll come after us with everything they have." "Then we keep moving," Maria said, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. "If we stay ahead of them, we have the advantage." "Staying ahead won't be enough," Green interjected. Her laptop balanced precariously on her knees. She was typing furiously, her screen reflecting in her glasses. "I'm combing through what's left of their network. We need intel on their next move and on how to hit them again." "What are you finding?" Price asked, her tone sharp. Green paused, her fingers hovering over the keys. "It's fragmented. Their comms are a mess, but there's chatter about a high-value target. Someone named Dr. Harlan." "Harlan?" Maria echoed. "Who is he?" Green adjusted her glasses. "From what I can piece together, he's a key figure in Orpheus Research Division. If we can find him, we might get answers, maybe even leverage." Price nodded, her jaw tightening. Then he's our next objective. Do we have a location? Not yet, Green admitted. But give me a few hours, and I'll find him. The group moved cautiously through the forest, following Green's directions as she tracked encrypted signals from her laptop. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of our mission pressing down on us. Despite our success at the hub, the sense of unease lingered. Orpheus resources were vast, and we'd seen only a fraction of their reach. Hold up, Price said, raising a fist. The group halted instantly, weapons raised as we scanned the surrounding trees. The forest was silent, unnaturally so. Something's off, Maria muttered, her finger hovering over the trigger of her rifle. I don't like it. A faint rustling to the left sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I gripped the Halligan tool tightly, my eyes locked on the shadows. Then, a figure emerged, disheveled, unarmed, and visibly terrified. Wait, they cried, raising their hands. I'm not with them. Don't shoot. Price stepped forward, her rifle trained on the stranger. Who are you? She demanded. And why are you following us? The stranger swallowed hard, their eyes darting nervously between us. My name's Ryan. I escaped from an Orpheus camp a week ago. I saw what you did to their facility. I thought maybe you could help me. Help you with what? Price asked, her tone cold. Ryan hesitated, his hands trembling. They're experimenting on people. I saw it. They're using us to test some kind of pathogen. Please, I can show you where. I just need your help. The group gathered in a tight circle, Ryan sitting a few feet away under Maria's watchful eye. Price's expression was grim as she addressed us. What do we think? She asked. Could be a trap, Tucker said bluntly. Orpheus could have planted him to lure us in. Or he's telling the truth, Maria countered. And if he is, we can't ignore it. Those people need help. Green glanced at her laptop. His story aligns with the intel I'm seeing. Orpheus has been ramping up their testing sites. If he's telling the truth, this could be our chance to shut one down. Price rubbed her temple, her expression betraying her internal struggle. Finally, she sighed. We'll check it out. But we do this cautiously. Ryan stays under guard, and we move in small teams. If it's a trap, we're not going down without a fight. Maria smirked, her rifle slung over her shoulder. Wouldn't expect anything less? As the group prepared to move, the tension was palpable. The stakes were higher than ever, and the shadows of the forest seemed to grow darker with every step. But one thing was clear. We were in this together, and no matter what lay ahead, we weren't backing down. Orpheus wasn't ready for us. The forest thickened as we followed Ryan's lead, his steps quick but hesitant. The tension in the air was palpable, each of us scanning the surroundings for signs of an ambush. Ryan's disheveled appearance and darting eyes didn't help to ease our suspicions, but the desperation in his voice kept us moving forward. It's not far now, Ryan said, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The camp, it's just beyond this ridge. What exactly are we walking into? Price asked, her tone sharp. She hadn't taken her eyes off Ryan since he joined us, her rifle never straying far from his direction. Ryan hesitated, swallowing hard. It's a research facility. They're holding people there, using them to test some kind of weaponized pathogen. It's not just about controlling the outbreaks anymore. They're creating something worse. Worse than this? Maria gestured to the forest, where the remnants of Orpheus chaos lingered in the form of eerie silence and abandoned ruins. Much worse, Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. The ridge gave way to a clearing, and there it was, the Orpheus research facility. A low, sprawling complex of gray concrete and steel, surrounded by high fences topped with razor wire. Guard towers loomed at each corner, their searchlights sweeping the area. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their movements precise and mechanical. Green crouched beside Price, her laptop open. I'm picking up heavy encryption on their comms. This place is locked down tight. Can you get us in? Price asked. Green nodded. I'll need a few minutes once we're closer, but their internal systems are vulnerable. If I can access one of their terminals, I can shut down the perimeter defenses. And what happens when they notice? Tucker asked, his shotgun resting across his shoulder. "Then we improvise," Price said, her tone leaving no room for argument. We moved under the cover of dense brush, circling toward a weak point in the fence that Green had identified. Ryan stayed in the middle of the group, his nervous energy making him fidget with every step. Maria and Tucker took point, their weapons at the ready, while Price and I covered the rear. The first obstacle was a guard post near the fence. 2 soldiers stood outside, their rifles slung casually over their shoulders. Maria raised her rifle, her aim steady. "Take them out quietly," Price whispered. Maria's silenced shots were barely audible, but the results were immediate. The guards dropped where they stood, and we moved quickly to drag their bodies out of sight. Green worked fast, her portable device slicing through the electronic lock on the fence. "We're in," she said, stepping aside to let the rest of us through. Inside the perimeter, the tension was suffocating. The facility's lights cast long shadows, and the faint hum of machinery underscored the eerie silence. We stuck to the edges, avoiding open spaces as we made our way toward a side entrance. Ryan's breathing grew heavier, his hands trembling. They'll have holding cells in the lower levels. That's where they keep the test subjects. "Focus," Price said sharply. "We get Green to a terminal first. Then we find the cells." The side entrance was unguarded, but the heavy steel door posed a challenge. Green knelt beside the access panel, her fingers flying over the keys. "Give me 30 seconds, she said, her voice calm despite the circumstances. Maria and I stood on either side of the door, our weapons ready. The faint sound of footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the facility, growing louder with each passing moment. "They're coming," I said, tightening my grip on the Halligan tool. "Almost there," Green replied, sweat beading on her forehead. The door hissed open just as the footsteps rounded the corner. Maria fired first, her silenced rifle dropping 2 soldiers before they could react. I stepped forward, swinging the Halligan tool at the remaining guard. The impact sent him sprawling, and Price finished him with a single shot. "Move," Price ordered, ushering us inside. The interior was stark and sterile, the harsh fluorescent lights reflecting off polished metal walls. Green quickly found a terminal, her laptop connected within moments. "I'm in," she said. "Disabling perimeter defenses now." "Good," Price said. "Ryan, where are the holding cells?" Ryan pointed to a corridor leading deeper into the facility. "Down there. But you need to be ready for what you'll see." "We're always ready," Maria said, her voice cold. The corridor led to a series of reinforced doors, each marked with a numeric code. Through the small windows, we could see rows of cells, their occupants slumped against the walls or pacing in agitation. Their gaunt faces and hollow eyes spoke of prolonged suffering. "Dear God," Carter whispered, his face pale. Ryan's voice broke. "This is what they're doing. Experimenting on people like they're lab rats." Price turned to Green. "Can you open them?" Green nodded, her fingers flying over the terminal. One by one, the doors unlocked, their mechanisms hissing as they slid open. The prisoners stumbled out, their confusion quickly replaced by relief. "We're getting you out of here," Price said firmly. "Stay close and follow our lead." As we guided the prisoners toward the exit, the facility's alarms suddenly blared, the lights shifting to an ominous red. "Looks like they noticed," Tucker muttered, raising his shotgun. "Then we fight," Price said, her rifle at the ready. "Let's finish this." 4:10 p.m. The facility erupted into chaos. The shrill wail of alarms reverberated through the sterile corridors, a sharp contrast to the desperate cries of the prisoners we were trying to escort to safety. Red emergency lights pulsed overhead, casting fleeting shadows that seemed to chase us as we ran. "They're sealing off the exits," Green shouted, her laptop clutched tightly to her chest as she sprinted to keep up. "We've got maybe 5 minutes before this place becomes a tomb." Price took point, her voice sharp and commanding. "Maria, Tucker, secure the route to the main corridor. I'll cover the rear. Green, can you override the lockdown?" Green nodded, already pulling out her portable device. "I'll need a terminal, but if I can access their mainframe, I can give us a path out." "There's one up ahead," Ryan interjected, his voice trembling but resolute. "Left at the next junction." "Let's move," Price barked. The junction was a choke point, and Orpheus soldiers were already mobilizing. Maria and Tucker took cover behind overturned carts, their weapons blazing as they kept the advancing troops at bay. "Green, find that terminal," Maria shouted over the gunfire. "We can't hold this forever." I swung the Halligan tool with all my strength, its weight connecting with a soldier attempting to flank us. He crumpled, and I turned to see Green hunched over a console, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Almost there," Green muttered, sweat dripping from her forehead. "Just a little longer." "We don't have longer," Maria yelled, reloading her rifle. The console beeped, and Green's face lit up with relief. "Got it. I've unlocked the auxiliary exit. It's down the hall and to the right." "Fall back," Price commanded, laying down suppressing fire. "Maria, Tucker, cover the retreat." The auxiliary exit was a narrow, dimly lit passage that reeked of rust and mildew. The prisoners shuffled through, their fear palpable as they clung to one another. Tucker and Maria brought up the rear, their weapons ready for any pursuit. "This doesn't feel right," Tucker muttered. "Why aren't they pushing harder?" "Because they don't need to," Green said grimly, glancing at her laptop. "I'm picking up chatter about reinforcements converging on the exterior. They're planning to trap us outside." Price's jaw tightened. "Then we keep moving. We'll deal with whatever's waiting for us out there." The passage opened into a loading bay, its massive doors slightly ajar. Bright daylight streamed through the gap, a stark reminder of the world outside. But the sight waiting for us chilled my blood. Orpheus soldiers were assembling in formation just beyond the doors, their black armor gleaming in the sunlight. At least 2 armored vehicles flanked the group, their mounted guns trained on the exit. "We can't fight through that," Carter said, his voice breaking. "We don't need to," Green said, pulling a small device from her bag. "I rigged the facility's power grid to overload when I accessed the mainframe. Give me 30 seconds, and this place will go up in flames." Price nodded. "Do it." "Maria, Tucker, prep smoke grenades. We need cover if we're going to get these people out." "On it," Maria said, her movements precise as she readied the grenades. The first explosion rocked the facility, sending a shockwave that knocked several soldiers off their feet. The armored vehicles hesitated, their gunners scanning for the source of the blast. Thick plumes of smoke billowed from the loading bay as Maria and Tucker deployed their grenades, obscuring the enemy's line of sight. "Go!" Price shouted, waving the prisoners forward. "Stay low and keep moving." The group bolted into the chaos, the smoke providing fleeting moments of cover. Bullets whizzed past, and the ground trembled with the force of secondary explosions as Green's sabotage continued to wreak havoc on the facility. I stayed close to Ryan, his panicked breaths loud in my ears. The Halligan tool felt heavier with each step, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins kept me moving. 4:40 p.m. The group reached the tree line just as the facility collapsed in on itself, a massive fireball consuming what remained. The shockwave flattened nearby vegetation, and the heat was enough to make us stumble. Price turned to face the smoldering ruin, her expression unreadable. "That's one less nightmare in the world." Maria nodded, her rifle still at the ready. "But there'll be more." "Then we'll stop them," Price said firmly. She looked at Ryan, who was doubled over, gasping for breath. "You said there were other camps. Do you know where?" Ryan nodded weakly. I think so. But it'll be even more dangerous than this one." "Good," Price said, her gaze hardening. "Because so are we." As the group disappeared into the forest, the distant sound of helicopters signaled the arrival of Orpheus reinforcements. But for now, we had survived. And with every step we took, our resolve to end Orpheus grew stronger.